Hey everybody, it's your old pal Mike. I hope you're happy, healthy, and safe. And welcome back to the channel because, well, today I gotta get something off my chest. And here it goes. I hate treble. Oh, I can't tell you how good it feels to say that out loud finally. I mean, I say it all the time, and what I mean by that is not necessarily that I hate all forms of treble. I mean, it can't all be bass and low mids. I mean, in a perfect world, maybe it could be. When it comes to picking out an amplifier that works for me, I just can't get on with bright, sparkly guitar sounds. I never have. I like snap, but not twang. Bite, but not brilliance. The word jangle sends shivers up my spine. As you might imagine, this makes it incredibly difficult for me to find an amplifier that will work for me these days. Most brand new amplifiers, even from my favorite companies like Marshall and Fender, seem so focused on those high-end frequencies that I just can't use them. At the risk of sounding like a vintage snob, it just so happens that most of my favorite guitar amps were manufactured between the years of 1950 and the late 1970s. With those amps, it seems so much easier to dial in a darker, fuller sound. And when it comes to new amps, well, I pretty much have to bypass everything that's available at Guitar Center or at a mom and pop shop and go straight to small builders to get an amp that meets my needs. This is why Adam from Satellite is one of my favorite makers around. He customized my gold Hellion, and at the end of it, I ended up with an amp that does literally everything I'd ever want it to. Now, as I'm talking about all this, I can hear some of you already objecting, but Mike, if you don't like treble, then why do you use offset guitars? Well, hold your horses just a minute there, partner. Because this has been a thing for me years before I discovered the Jazzmaster and Jaguar, even when I was a Gibson-only guy, and there was a period of my life when I definitely was one. I was still rolling off the treble and presence knobs on my Marshall heads because I just didn't want bright, spanky frequencies. And when I finally did discover the glorious nature of the Jazzmaster and Jaguar, I realized that the combination of a bright guitar and a dark amp is a potent one indeed. I found that a dark amp will just naturally filter out all of the frequencies that I don't need while retaining the bite and snarl that I absolutely love. I have always preferred warmer, smoother sounds, and when I find an amp that does that for me, well, I get really excited. And so, with joy in my heart, friends, I am pleased to introduce you to my latest amplifier crush. I'm 39! The Strange Audio Electronics Lux Plus. This thing takes pedals beautifully, and it has a great basic sound that gives me all of the low end and low mid thickness that my little heart could desire. So let's talk specs. The Strange Audio Electronics Lux Plus is a 15-watt 6v6 based amplifier that takes inspiration from both Tweed and 60s American circuits and mixes them both, but without the scoop. In fact, I would call this amp mids forward because it takes your guitar signal and pushes it right out front without cloaking it in a warm, gooey blanket of bass frequencies. The amp features high and low inputs for both the bright and normal channels, as well as a volume control for each and a shared tone control. The amp also has a cleaner, meaner switch for 3 distinct voicing options, ranging in tone from clean and touch sensitive to dirty and aggressive overdrive. Let's hear what that switch can do. Each amp also includes a custom-made jumper cable that allows you to blend the unique tonalities of the bright and normal channels for a much more complex sound. Internally, each amp uses Jupiter bypass capacitors, a Mercury magnetics power transformer, a custom Sour Sound output transformer, and all of it is housed in a beautifully made custom gravity enclosures 13-ply void-free birch enclosure. Ooh. And all of that is housed in a custom 13-ply birch void-free 13-ply void-free birch gravity custom by gravity enclosures. And all of that is housed inside a beautiful 13-ply void-free birch. Ugh. And all of that is housed in a custom 13-ply void-free birch cabinet by gravity enclosures. Oh my god, I said it once. Was that fine? That's what we're using. And best of all, each amp is hand-wired and handmade in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, which brings me a sense of home state pride. Now, I'd like to state up front that there are so many sounds available in the Lux Plus that I can't possibly run through them all in the confines of a single video. In fact, there are some sounds in the Lux Plus that I would just never use, namely the Bright channel. If you watched the introduction to this video, then you can imagine that I'm not going to have fun with anything labeled Bright, but to be fair, I did plug in. It sounds great. It's got chime and jangle and personality, but yeah, I'm just going to pretend it's not there. Imagine this amp is an old-timey map and the Bright channel is labeled Here Be Dragons. We are just not going there. And that goes for jumpered channels. That's just not a sound I've ever found any use for, so I'm just going to focus on the normal channel and stick with that because it gives me everything I need. And during prepping for this video, Josh at Strange Audio has asked me to specifically focus on how the amp takes pedals, a request which I'm more than happy to oblige. So if you happen to be more interested in what the amp can do on its own, as well as feature-rich explanations and amp-only demos, please visit strangeaudioelectronics.com for more info. If, like me, you are a Jazzmaster and Jaguar fanatic, and you're looking for a smallish amp that doesn't overemphasize bright treble frequencies, and the Lux Plus has a lot to offer. In all of the demos you're hearing in this video, the tone control is parked at 3.5, which is plenty treble for me. I have had it as far as 6, which is pretty brave of me, but no thank you. That's too much treble. I would never use it there. So 3.5 is where we're sticking, no matter what pedal or guitar I'm using. With its basic sound, the Lux Plus absolutely has its own thing going on, and that is a huge plus for me, especially when it comes to using pedals. As a matter of fact, I just don't get on with most of these so-called clean slate pedal platform amps out there. Amps that go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to intrude, I'm just here to make you sound good." And they end up sounding dull and boring to me. I want an amp with personality and intentionality behind its tone, and the Lux Plus fits that bill perfectly. And because so many of you out there, like me, are using pedals as a crucial component of our sounds, I think it's important to show off how the Lux does with pedals. In fact, out of everything I own, I have not found a single pedal that this amp doesn't like. Whether it's reverb, or fuzz, or delay, or looping, or chorus, or flange, any of that, this amp holds together beautifully no matter what I stack in front of it. While the spec sheet calls the Lux Plus a 15-watt amp, I gotta tell you, that feels like an extremely conservative rating to me, because from my experience, this thing is loud. At 3.5 on the volume, this amp is plenty loud. It doesn't matter what guitar I'm using, whether it's my 61 Jazzmaster, my parted together 63 Jaguar, my 12, my Baritone, my bass 6. This amp handles it all at volume without falling apart, which is more than I can say for that colorful Blues Junior back there. If I plug my Baritone into that, it just becomes a muddy mess. It cannot handle the low frequencies that guitar is putting out. But this thing takes it like a champ. Not a Fender champ, but like a champion, like a winner of a race who can run or decathlon. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that the amp is wearing a 12-inch Jupiter speaker, and I'm really impressed with how this thing has performed. As for the visual package, I adore it. I love seeing these bright, happy colors every time I look at the amp. It gives me a jolt and a lift and a boost. It's like Rainbow Bright threw up on an amplifier, and that is right up my alley. However, if you're not like me and you don't want to make a visual splash everywhere you go, and believe me, I get it, then you'll be happy to know that Josh offers the amp in a number of other colorways, some of which are much more subdued and adult and proper. No! At the end of the day, the Lux Plus is a treat for the eyes and ears, and I really could go on and on and on about the myriad tones I found exciting or inspiring out of this amp. It really cannot be overstated how much of an improvement the Lux Plus is over most of the small amps I've used lately. And in fact, I'm looking at some of the ones in my collection, and I think some of them have got to go. The Strange Audio Lux Plus really has impressed me this much, and the first thing I'm going to do when I find an amp that works for me is I'm going to come tell you about it. And I do so in the hope that like-minded players in search of darker, moodier sounds will also find something to love in an amp like the Lux Plus. Again, I encourage you to visit strangeaudioelectronics.com for more info and sound samples and pricing details. At $15.99, this amp feels like it should be a lot more expensive than it is. I'm so impressed with the quality, the sound, the build. Everything about this amp screams boutique for me, except for the price. I think the price is incredibly fair for the kind of amp and workmanship that you're getting. Simply put, Josh has earned both my respect and a little bit of my hard-earned money. I think I'm definitely going to be throwing down for one of these in the very near future, and I'm so impressed with the sound and quality of this amp that I think it's going to become the main demo amp for the channel. So you're going to be seeing one of these or something very close to it on the channel a lot in the future. Anyway, that about does it for this video. Thank you so much for watching and coming back to the channel again and again, for liking, for sharing, commenting, for subscribing, all of that good stuff. I do appreciate it so much. I hope you're taking care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you in the next one.